Hey folks, good evening and welcome to the breakdown. I am solo tonight, wearing nothing but shorts and totally unsupervised by any kind of adults. Welcome to the breakdown. Since the sun stays up so late in the summertime in my part of the world, it doesn't quite feel like Wilson after dark, but soon, my friends, very soon. So quickly, I want to lead out on a couple things and then get to a monster story. First off, these anonymous leaks from the Secret Service that were trying to break down Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony and say she was lying about her tiny hands trying to seize the wheel of the Yukon or of the Suburban on January 6th. It turns out, and you'll be shocked to hear this, that a bunch of Trump sycophants in the Secret Service might have been lying their fucking asses off. Yet, in fact, there's now video out, what I call the Tiny Hands Zapruder film, that shows Trump in the vehicle trying to lunge forward at the steering wheel and the driver up front. I think we're going to see better and clearer pieces of it tonight, but it is out there on the Twitter machine. You should definitely have a look. This guy, Tony Otranto, who is the anonymous source who is the anonymous source, by the way, for all these stories against Hutchison, from what I'm hearing, has suddenly gone quiet and suddenly doesn't want to talk off the record anymore and suddenly is concerned that their bullshit is being called. This guy may have been a great Secret Service agent, but he was also a huge Trump sycophant to the point where he became a White House deputy chief of staff because Trump viewed him as a valuable member of his Praetorian Guard. The next thing I want to talk about quickly is I want to recommend to dogs, please shush. Sorry, the dogs are doing what they do. I want to recommend to you Liz Cheney's speech at the Ronald Reagan Library. If you are looking for an articulation of the dangers of this moment and the risks of authoritarianism and a person who articulates a patriotic case from a conservative perspective for why the 1-6 Commission is so important, why accountability is so important, why democracy is so important, I would really commend that speech to you. We'll put it up again on the links at the Lincoln Project tonight. We'll post some summary clips of it, but I really would recommend you see the whole speech. We'll put it up again. We'll put the links up tonight. But it is an amazing refutation of the Trump bullshit of 1-6, an amazing refutation of the rhetoric and the language of the authoritarian movement that we're facing up against. And she does a tremendous job at it. So really recommend that. Finally, the president is coming out of the NATO summit with something that I know that Republicans used to care about, they used to give a damn about, but he has come out strengthening NATO, leading in our national security interests abroad, which still exists, no matter how many times the right believes you can pull up the curtain and hide behind the oceans that surround us on two sides. In a hyper-connected world, you can't. So vital leadership is being shown by the president in Europe today and in NATO, where he has recommitted to saving our allies in Eastern Europe from the perils of Vladimir Putin's resurgent and revanchist movement to sort of reassert Russia's dominance in the region. I think it's an enormously consequential thing. It will get lost in the media shuffle, but it's really important. And finally, before I bring in my good friend and our co-founder of the Lincoln Project, Reed Galen, in just a moment, I want to talk about the Barr and Meadows communications that were revealed today. This afternoon, it was revealed from the Department of Justice that Bill Barr sent a dossier concerning the Lincoln Project, naming myself and Reed and Stewart by name, and throwing a number of our supporters who retweeted our content as well into this report. Mark Meadows pushed this dossier that was assembled by the Trump campaign to Bill Barr. Now, the email chain that was released by the Department of Justice, and we're going to post this up on the site. We've already put out a statement on our Twitter, which you can see. We'll be talking more about this in the coming days. Mark Meadows said, here is the information about the Lincoln Project. Didn't contextualize it at all, which means Mark Meadows had already had a conversation with Bill Barr. Mark Meadows had already communicated with him either in person or on the phone. They were attempting to use the Department of Justice to attack and destroy the Lincoln Project. Let's not beat around the bush. On the one hand, this is enormously concerning, enormously dangerous, enormously perilous and radical. On the other hand, good. It shows exactly where we are in the food chain and the ecosystem of this world. It shows us that they know that we were leading the fight against them. They know that we were the one thing they feared the most in the super PAC area. And God bless the other Democratic super PACs out there. And God bless the other independent super PACs out there. And God bless the other Republican super PACs out there who oppose Trump. But I promise you, the work we did and that you folks helped us do and the support you gave us made it possible for us to get in there and cause them the most trouble ever. And now I want to get Reed Galen into the conversation. And Reed, it's good to see you. I can't hear you, but I see you.
I put myself on mute because I didn't want to make noise while you were speaking. But yeah, I'm glad to be in such august company on such a primetime show. I rarely get to do this.
I know, right? It's amazing. Well, listen, I you know, you and I spent Sunday, Monday, Tuesday together working on one of our projects, and I don't know, when I hugged you and said, "See you later, brother," on Tuesday night, I did not think that by today we would be burning up the phone lines and the chats at the Lincoln Project talking about the fact that the White House had Bill Barr attempt to get at us.
Yeah, you know, Rick, the only other time in the last 2.5 years since we started this that I can imagine the feeling I have right now was the night of, I think it was the second or third of May 2020.
Right.
It was about 11 o'clock my time in the Mountain Time Zone, and checking Twitter one last time before going to bed, seeing him attack us by name. So
Yep.
I guess this is not an unusual thing for them. But it was one thing when I guess he was the sitting president. It was another thing, as you said, when it is the chief of staff to the president of the United States communicating, as you said, information he clearly referenced in a prior communication to the attorney general of the United States. But Rick, I think it's even more than that, as you and I noted before we went on, that he made this communication on November 11th, 2020.
Right.
So what,
right.
9 days after election day,
Mm-hmm.
and I think 3 or 4 days after the press had called the election for Biden. And so,
right.
You know, happy to get into why all that occurred. But I think,
I think
with Cassidy Hutchinson or mm-hmm. any of these people is like, this stuff is real, guys. Like, this stuff is real. Ask our families, right? When they do this stuff, they're not kidding around. We might have been among the first, if not the first, Rick. We certainly weren't the last. We won't be the last.
No, but listen, folks. The thing they went after us about was right after. Well, let me wind the clock back a little further. In October, we wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post calling on our Republican friends and allies and old associates in D.C. And we said, and redrafted this. It was. We asked them, "Are you going to cross the Rubicon with Trump? When he loses this election, he will say it was unfair. He will cheat. He will use violence. He will try to win it back no matter what." We warned about that before the election. As on the night of November 3rd, we had every troll in the world laughing and capering. They're like, "Ah, ha, 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 Lincoln Project, you guys lost. Trump won." We knew that he had not. We knew the red wave was an illusion in the beginning of the night. We knew what would come out. The statistics were with us. The math was with us. And a couple days later, Reed said on a Sunday, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday, probably what was it, like the 7th or the 8th, Reed?
I think it was the 8th because the Biden camp, the president, Joe Biden had just become president-elect.
Right.
And in that moment, as you know, a presidential campaign goes from a campaign to one that is now worrying about building a government. So that's a transition office,
right,
getting ready for an inaugural, which is all the parades and the swearing-ins and all that.
Yep.
So their political activity had gone from 100 to 0 overnight because now, okay, we're president-elect. All of things come with that. Now we have to look forward to January 20th.
Yeah, I remember you sent an email. I can't remember what night it was, but you sent an email about that. It's like, looks like the Biden campaign is slowing down, or they're offline or something. And the next day, we were having another conversation, and again, it was either that Sunday or Saturday or Sunday night before. And on the 10th, we identified a bunch of these Washington, D.C. white shoe law firms that thought they were going to go out and sue Trump's way out of a loss. They were going to go out and invalidate African-American ballots in Philadelphia and elsewhere. And we started using the power of the Lincoln Project on social media because we weren't going to put up with it. It wasn't just that we were going to bring the pressure on Trump. It was that if you were an attorney who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution as a member of the bar, then you were out trying to burn that Constitution down on Trump's behalf. We were going to call you out. So we called out a bunch of those law firms, and this at this point set off the Trump world, and they started, and they clearly had their minions on the night of the 9th or the 10th do a big opposition research file on us, which Mark Meadows on the 11th, according to results released from a FOIA request from the Department of Justice today, Mark Meadows, within 1 day of getting that report, was pressuring Bill Barr to go after us. It is, I mean, I feel like, Reed, I have a lot of emotions on this. I'm pissed off for our country that a group of private citizens exercising their First Amendment rights would be targeted by the White House and the Department of Justice. I'm not surprised, but mostly I think I'm just like, I'm ready to fucking brawl, man. I'm ready to get back in the fight again with these guys. Bring it on.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, the thing that, Rick, I think that most upset them was one, that we had done it, right? And right. Remember that, yeah, I mean, they always blamed us, right? They
always.
Us.
Always.
We were, first of all, we were in Trump's face all the time. But a couple of things too is, remember, just to give a little bit more context, folks, it was about 2 years ago, the summer of 20, when Mary Trump, the president's niece, when we asked her, well, if he loses, will he go quietly? She said no.
No.
She said no. So long as he believes he is personally safe, right? That his body,
correct,
literal body is safe, he will do whatever he thinks he can get away with. And Rick, remember, that was the moment when we started saying, this election isn't over on November 3rd. It's not over until Joe Biden takes the oath of office on January 20th. So we knew something was going to happen. We didn't know.
I said it on this show.
Right. And so then, guys, we see on the 8th, so the press calls the election for Biden on the 7th. On the 8th and 9th, you can start to see in this vacuum the Trump cronies, the Trump law firms start to fill the vacuum. They start to move in. And we said, guys, this is what they're going to do. They're going to have these really talented lawyers go in and put through these bogus these bogus suits. Yep. And so we said, we got to scare these people off. And what did we do, Rick? You went and, to the media and said, we're going to spend money on this. We're going to do this. We had people call them out at their offices, and some people.
We went through. We did LinkedIn to go after them.
Yep. And they left, and they got scared off. And so, Rick, why was Meadows angry? He wasn't angry because we did it. He was angry. Trump was angry. The whole gang was angry because their best chance for a legal resolution went up in smoke when we took their best lawyers off the field to be replaced by the Kraken lady and Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis and Cleta Mitchell and John Eastman, right?
Exactly.
They're the keystone cops of the legal profession. And so now Jones Day, right, and some of these other folks who are big national firms, they have big corporate clients, right, Rick? It's not just a matter of, they work for Donald Trump. Now they're getting a bad name, and they go running for the hills because they're like, well, we don't want this.
Right. I mean, General Motors was a Jones Day client, and I'm sure, and our profile on these things, when we push this kind of thing for a corporate responsibility angle, which is what this was, they recognize that nothing's worth losing a client like General Motors or Ford or whoever it was. It was one of the big automakers that they had, and we said it publicly. Like, I'm sure that they don't believe that a law firm representing their company should also be representing somebody trying to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of African American voters in Pennsylvania, for instance, or to overturn an election in Georgia where hundreds of thousands of African American voters made the difference. And in those cases, I think you're right, though. Meadows was furious that we took away that bullshit Washington thing of, well, you know, I don't really like Trump, but I'm just going to do my job here. That's the just following orders bullshit of DC. And you know, Tim Miller writes about that in his new book, where he talks about the just following orders types in DC who just go along to get along. And so you've got that moment where he sends this over to Bill Barr. Now, we don't know what happened then. Uh-oh, we lost Reed. We don't know what happened after that. We don't know what Bill Barr did with this yet. But I promise you, folks, we are going to find out. We've got attorneys tonight who are drafting our own Freedom of Information Act requests for both Mark Meadows records and for Bill Barr's records and for any other records related to the White House political office or the White House Communications Office, which all these things in every authoritarian movement, they're very tightly interlaced. They're very, very tightly linked. And frankly, folks, I suspect what you're going to see is that Bill Barr's office got a hold of this and they looked at it like a radioactive hot potato. And
I mean, based on what we saw from his deputies in their testimony the week before last, I think, you know, these guys might have been working for Donald Trump, but they sure as hell weren't breaking the law, and they sure as hell
right.
violate the Constitution and going after, you know, a political organization for free speech, right?
Yep.
They probably agreed with us. Maybe not our methods, Rick, but they probably agreed that like these lawsuits were BS, that they had merit. That, you know, there were no stolen votes anywhere, let alone, you know, Center City, Philadelphia. And so I'm sure you're right. And Bill Barr, you may not like him. We may consider him a bad guy, but also no dummy.
Yeah, Bill Barr was not about to go down a rabbit hole on Mark Meadows' behalf, trying to sue or to prosecute or to investigate a group of private citizens in a super PAC exercising their First Amendment rights in this country. But it tells you a lot about the intentionality of this White House to burn down anybody who would take away their power. You know, they had, as you like to say, the most powerful office in the history of mankind, and we helped take it away from them. And you know, and like I said, I'm cycling through this. A friend of mine sent me a message a few minutes before we came on the air, and she goes, on the one hand, I'm so proud of you guys. On the other hand, I'm scared to death for you. What if they get back in power? And, you know, it's a legitimate question. These are people who bear a grudge. And what you saw there was that, you know, Mark Meadows, and by the way, folks, Mark Meadows doesn't take a dump without Donald Trump's permission. I promise you, we're going to find out who gave Mark Meadows the order to send that over. He didn't think of that on his own. That didn't come out of his brain on his own. And
remember too, Rick, that this was still close enough to the whole time when, the normal crew, which again is only normal for Donald Trump, had probably not yet moved off totally. To your point, somebody had to compile this information. Somebody had to be told to compile this information.
Yep.
Once compiled, somebody had to deliver it to someone who subsequently delivered it to the chief of staff of the White House. Right. There's a whole bunch of people involved here, right? You know, I'm sure they had an Oppo file on us, right? We saw that
we know they did, for sure.
No, they did. They tried to kill us. But I'll tell you this, Rick, to your point, you know, if I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit surreal seeing my name up there as the first on the list. Stewart's there, and then you're there, and you know, and this was the other part too, guys, which I think is a good reminder, Rick, is not only like, did we recognize an opportunity and we took it, but also just remember, like, whatever you can do in your role in the world for a pro-democracy movement, when you have the chance to do something that will derail these people, like, right. And people, you know, Rick, remember, there were people like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't do that. Lawyers have a choice, and whoever. And I said, like, hey, first of all, these people aren't John Adams, right?
Right.
Like,
these people are. Yeah. And again, there were a few people, including some people who were allies of ours before, and are allies again now. They've, you know, made the circle of life. But the idea that we weren't going to do everything possible, because folks, just so you know, Reed and I can both cook. We don't need to be invited to dinner parties in Washington, D.C. to feel satisfied and to get a good meal.
It's a good thing we never are.
Right? There's a cultural bias in DC at some point to say, well, they're just consultants. They have to do this. They're just lawyers. They have to do this. They're just operatives. They have to do this. Well, we didn't. We burned our freaking lives down and put our families at risk and put our careers in the dumper because we didn't have to just do it. And
I think that's what you see now, right? I mean, Rick, you and I are sitting where we're sitting, reasonably safe as anyone. But you think back to earlier this week, right? Miss Hutchison, Cassidy Hutchison, 25 years old. She will need round the clock personal security for the foreseeable future. Her life is in immediate danger right now because she told the truth.
I had to look around. Go ahead. Go.
No, and I just wanted to say, if I may just go back to the Secret Service, like I worked with those guys for a long, long time, have the utmost respect for the job they do. But let's be clear, Rick, like when she was talking about the Beast, right, is the old answer here. That's the tank that looks like a Cadillac, right? It's like 20 feet long. That's the one where they want you to believe he was riding. He wasn't. He was riding in a Suburban that day, which, but for, thick bulletproof glass, and armored doors and everything else, is not that different on the inside than any other Suburban.
Correct.
Right? Maybe even a little bit more cramped between the back and the front because you have to put all the other gear and everything in there. So the idea that somehow they thought they'd be able to throw everybody off the scent with this thing, one, and then two, you could see too, Rick, it was such a textbook thing for them, is like throw this bright shiny object, right? Which of course, I believe, too many members of the media were willing to take anonymous sources to the Secret Service. Like, if you have a young woman who's put her life on the line under oath, do better than anonymous sources close to the agency. Do better.
You know what? And these folks, this is, again, one of the cultural flaws of Washington, D.C. and the press corps, is they're like, well, he's a Secret Service guy. He's a straight up guy. He has to be. He may like Trump, but he wouldn't lie to us, would he? Yes, he would. And he did. And there were, by the time this line of pushback on her started, there were websites, there were various right-wing news websites putting out pictures of the Beast inside and showing how it was physically impossible. And now I promise you, they will be dead silent. They will not report what is now shown on videotape, that he was not in the Beast. He was, in fact, in one of the Suburbans. And there is now video of him leaning over the front seat of this vehicle. It's bullshit.
Which Rick, like some yellow-haired, orange-skinned Julius Caesar, right? Like low-rent Caesar wanted to lead the charge up Pennsylvania Avenue or Independence Avenue, right? I mean, can you imagine?
Well, if they would have let him, he would have stood up in the sunroof and run up Pennsylvania Avenue in the damn thing.
Well, he would not have run up anything. Let's be clear.
Right, as a passenger.
Chocolate milkshake. But I mean, that's the thing is, it's weird too, Rick, because just like Ornato and Trump's detail leader, or like Speaker Bowers in Arizona, these things happen. They say them, but somehow they're afraid to go all the way with it, and they're trying to find their way back into some sort of like, well, I was a hero for this moment. I did what I needed to do, but I don't want to let Trump go. Like, you're in or you're out. There's no both sides of the line.
Right. Yeah, you can't be a little bit pregnant if you're going to be defending democracy. You can't just say, well, he can do a few of these things, but not some of them. No, you can't do any of that stuff. It's the turd in the punch bowl. Once you have a turd in the punch bowl, it's not punch. None of it's punch. It's all turd water. It's one of my grandmother's favorite phrases.
Oh, God, I wish I could be your grandmother.
She was a fiery and amazing individual. But one of the things that I think is so clear here, it is an example of how the right-wing media ecosystem functions. By in the morning, they were nervous as shit on Fox when Cassidy Hutchison was talking. They did not know what to say. You and I were in the conference room at this meeting we were at, and it was on, and you could see like the robots and the gears in their heads, like bleep, 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 bloop, bloop. They couldn't process it. They couldn't figure it out. By the time Tucker and Hannity and Laura were on that night, it was lying socialist spy, Soros lackey, Cassidy Hutchinson, who never ever was in the White House except one time on
Scorned
a tourist.
woman, Rick. Scorned woman.
Scorned woman, right.
She wanted a job. They wouldn't give her one.
Right. By the time
I've never met this woman. She's a
right.
loser, bad
right.
person.
By the time the evening rolled around, they were all on message 100%. And that's one of the things that we do that makes them crazy is we knock them off message. We hit them in the face over and over again. We disrupt them. We make their plans turn to garbage. And it's enormously, I mean, it just really clarifies a lot about where the Trump world's headspace about us has been from the beginning. They know we go at them. They don't like it. They can't understand why they can't kill us. And as I said this today in one of our chats, it's like we're the Weeble of super PACs. They have tried to knock us down so many times. And sometimes, folks, the things they try to knock us down on, we're not perfect. We're not pretending to be perfect, but far from it. But their attacks on us continue. There's a reporter at Fox. His only freaking job is to write shit about us. I feel bad for the guy.
When he'll text me or DM me and ask me for comment.
Right.
Which I always think is charming in its own.
It is charming because he tries to write his emails in English and it's like, I will be publishing this at 12:15. I never, ever respond, whatever. You do you, bro. But listen, and I think that there's just a big lesson here, folks. And I am enormously grateful and honored by the support you guys have given us to keep this fight going. And today is just one of those points, one of those proof points where it reminds us that the value we have in this battle against authoritarianism is something that, our friends appreciate it. They tell us a lot, and we are enormously grateful for that. But it's also good to have the right enemies, and we sure as hell do. So, hey, Reed, you got time to answer a couple questions from the audience? We got a couple questions.
Let's do it.
All right. Fire it up. Do you believe Meadows will testify? I don't think so. You?
I don't think so. I think that he will, unless I don't think he'll do it before Congress. And Rick, I think when his time in the what I'll call Henry Hill situation comes, when he's sitting, he and his lawyer are sitting on one side of the table, and a U.S. attorney and an FBI agent are sitting on the other, and they say, "You're going to go to jail. Your wife's going to go to jail. Your friends are going to go to jail. You're all going to go to jail.
Kids are going to be orphans."
Yeah, your kids are going to be orphans. My guess is that that's when he'll start to flip to make whatever deal he can.
Someone mentioned to me, and a pretty smart attorney that mentioned to me earlier today, that he thought that Meadows' value had gone down dramatically after Cassidy Hutchinson testified.
Well, yeah, look, she was, I mean, she was clearly, based on her testimony, I mean, Meadows is sitting there scrolling through either text messages, Twitter, or both, right, in a daze, right? He's been overcome by events, and, she's sitting there, Cipolloni's, trying to get him to move on things.
Right.
And it's like, he doesn't want to talk to anybody. He thinks Mike deserves it. And, it sounds like he was trying to keep Trump happy while, making others think that he was really trying to get it under control. When the truth is that, he wasn't. He was doing what he was asked to do. He could have at any moment, like so many of these people, right? Rick said, "I'm out of here. I'm not going to do this anymore."
Right.
And any one of those tripwires very well might have convinced Trump, like it did when he realized that they were not going to, when the lawyers at DOJ were not going to quit, and when he was not going to be successful on January 6th, he sort of succumbed to his fate. But Meadows didn't ever stop that. He never threw up a roadblock to say, "Mr. President, we can't do this anymore."
Yeah. Okay. Next question. What the fuck with Mike Flynn? He's a retired general, appears to be involved deeply in this insurrection. Why is the military DOJ not going after him for sedition? Samantha, that is a fine question. I do not know the answer to that. I have been told that they could call him back to active duty, bust him down to E1, and basically strip him of his rank and credentials and benefits. But I don't know why they haven't. Mike Flynn is clearly a central character in this, right, Reed?
I think so. And this is one of those things too, where Rick, remember he was relieved by President Obama of his role as running, I think, the Defense Intelligence Agency. And it seems that might have been the place in which, the switch was flipped, because remember, it wasn't just Trump, right? Remember, he's Vladimir Putin's guest at a big Moscow fancy deal.
Right.
Even a few days into his role as national security advisor, he's trying to, pluck an American resident, Mohammed Gulen, I believe his name is, out of central Pennsylvania and basically use extraordinary rendition to send him back to Turkey on the president over there's behalf, right? Like these are not normal effects. Then he got, then he lied to the FBI, all the other things, and then he became a full, QAnon, like we go one, we go all.
He's
a guy who had some serious sort of psychotic break.
And look, folks, there are plenty of retired generals and retired senior military officials who have gone cuckoo and who are all Trumpers, but they're not all of them involved in some of this conspiracy business that Flynn may be implicated in. So I think I don't know why there's been a delay. Now, I will say this, the military justice system works at a very different pace. And they work these very different standards and cues and evidentiary standards. So there may be something happening there we don't know about. They may be waiting to see if there's a civil side to this or a federal criminal side to this where Flynn is implicated. But we'll keep an eye on that for you. All right, one last question. Go ahead.
The last question is the idea that you would take the fifth on a question like, or were you upset that there wasn't a peaceful, that like it didn't work, or General Flynn, do you believe in the peaceful transition of power? Like that, to take the fifth on that seems unusual. And in fact, I will just say this, his lawyer actually gave Liz Cheney like a second question to ask, because he's like, is that a political question or a political question? And she's like, well, why do we ask it both ways? And, maybe get a better lawyer. You're going to need
that guy looked like he shouldn't be within 500 feet of a Chuck E. Cheese. Anyway, next question. Is Rudy still paralyzed from the back slap? Well, I think he's paralyzed from the utter humiliation his son got in the Republican primary in New York State, which...
Yeah, and Rudy, I mean, Rick, you've known Giuliani a long time. He used to have a defined head, neck, and shobers. They all seem to be coming one now.
He looks like he should be like a teller at Gringotts Bank now. He looks like a hobgoblin. Listen, Rudy was always a strange looking cat. He was always a weird guy. The comb over. I was there during the comb over years, and we begged him like,
no comb overs for you and me, Rick.
No, buddy. No, we're pure, man. We're pure, and there's no pretending. But we begged him. But look, Rudy and the backslap, that was another one of those examples where the right-wing media ecosystem tried to turn chicken shit into chicken salad, and it just didn't work. They acted like this guy knocked him to the ground and beat him senseless. It was like he patted him on the back. It was like, hey, what's up? And that was it.
But it goes to your point, Rick, though, about the radical right-wing media machine, right? Is that they had to do anything to distract from what was going on. And again, much like the video you mentioned with Trump clearly trying to get to the front of the Suburban. Yeah. Once the video was there, everybody's like, ugh, are you kidding? Like, this was the best y'all could come up with?
Right. And of course, you know what Fox's response is? It wasn't, we were wrong, we misstated the case. It was, there's a caravan of migrants coming to kill you. They changed the subject. They're masterful at it, which, is why the rest of the American media has to be, I believe, much more conscious of the fact that they're often played by the Republicans. They're often, the Republicans have gotten very good at gaming the system. And they need to be more mindful of the fact that just because an off-the-record source at the Secret Service tells you something in contradiction to someone who spoke on the record, it doesn't necessarily mean that because you know them from the press room or from the 18 acres that they're more credible or valid. So Well, listen, Reed, I am so delighted you came on tonight. It was great seeing you this week, and hopefully we'll have some more news about our project we worked on this week soon.
And Rick, as always, thanks for having me. Always great to see you. And
You
thanks.
bet, my friend.
I rarely get to see the breakdown crowd.
Right?
They're not nearly what you said they were, Rick. So
I know. You know, they're a disreputable bunch of hooligans and scalawags. Again, my grandmother's phrasing. Listen, folks, if you want to help us out and keep us in the fight, the Trump folks sure don't want us there. And what we saw today was real proof that they don't want us in this fight. If you feel inclined to support us, we would be deeply grateful. We're at action.lincolnproject.us/donate, or hit that QR code right there.
Quarter. Tonight is the end of the quarter. Please.
Tonight's the end of the quarter. Hook us up.
Midnight.
We got a lot of fighting to do this fall. We got a lot of elections we're involved in, and we're trying to make sure that we save democracy, so that in 2024, a bunch of idiotic Republican governors and U.S. senators can't just rubber stamp the return of you-know-who. So, folks, thank you so much. We're deeply grateful for all your support. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and we will see you soon.
Bye, y'all.